Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Caitlin and I'm an American who's moving to Australia at the end of the year. I've done a few reaction videos on this channel before, but most of them have been about dating culture, and today I'm reacting to a video that's going to be a little bit more controversial. 10 reasons why Australian women are better than American women. Let's see if that's really true.
Number 10. They're considerate and kind. According to the HSBC Bank International's Expat Explorer survey, Australia is the third friendliest country in the world.
So they had some random expat survey that said this, but if you look at World Population Review, the US is literally one step above Australia. America ranks 36 and Australia ranks 37. Now granted, both of those are kind of low on the list. I would have thought that both of them would have been a little bit higher, but overall depends on the statistics and surveys that you're going to base these things off of. Obviously, you could probably find some survey or statistic out there that says whatever you want in order to make a video as to whether or not Australian women are more kind and considerate than American women. That's obviously going to be from person to person. Both countries are very friendly, both have very welcoming and open cultures, and both of them are known for being very outgoing.
Number 9. Family first. Australian women seem more family-oriented as compared to American women. American women are mostly working, which makes it difficult for them to balance between work and family.
So this one I take issue with, because not only is this not fair to American women, it's also not true. America is not set up as a family-oriented, family-friendly country in terms of raising kids, unless you have a lot of money in order to put them into daycare, to hire an au pair. For the most part, if you're going to get by in America, you kind of need two incomes. And this is kind of true in Australia. Even though the wages are higher, there is a little bit more support in Australia compared to America for families and for mothers. So I think it's kind of unfair to say that Australian women are family first when American women are basically set up to fail if they try to put family first. You have two countries with completely different cultures, with completely different governments, with completely different rules and laws. So to say that Australian women are family first compared to American women, I don't think that's true. And it's not saying that Australian women don't put their family first. I think that American women, you need to look at it in the context of the countries itself. American women don't have the same opportunities to raise a family that Australian women do, because of the differences in their laws, in their government, and the way that everything is set up. So to say that Australian women put their family first over Americans, by what standards?
Number 8. They're less materialistic. Recently, videos of gold diggers went viral on the internet. American girls were seen as money hungry who would get along with any guy who was a big shot. It's believed that a large percentage of women around the world are gold diggers, but this is not the case for Australian women. I
think this point is so sexist and ridiculous that most women out there are gold diggers all around the world, but somehow Australia doesn't fall into that category. It makes absolutely no logical sense to say that most women in the world are gold diggers, but not Australians. Somehow this one particular country is exempt from the rest of the world being gold diggers. I think this makes absolutely no sense. It's poorly thought out by the video editor in this. I don't know why they would include this point. There's no statistics to back it up. There's no numbers. There's no data. I think that this is absolutely sexist and false coming from most women in most countries, not just Americans and not just Australians.
They treat their men as equals. Men and women both stand on the same level. They might differ from each other in some respects, but it's important to ensure that their differences do not indicate that one is superior to the other. Australian women usually have a solid group of friends which consists of both male and female friends. However, they are not sexist.
I come from a legal background and a law background, and I know how biased the family court systems are in both countries. In that case, sex, gender, however it's classified, plays a huge part in the outcomes of family court. This is true in Australia, it's true in America. So while there are rules in both countries that prevent discrimination on the basis of sex, there's also issues in both countries as well throughout the family court systems regarding discrimination by sex, by gender. And again, the video editor in this cites no information as to statistics, data, numbers. This is all just fluff. It's stereotypes that are being perpetuated that Americans are more sexist than other countries. And there are laws in both countries, in Australia and America, that prevent discrimination based on a person's sex or gender. So to say that one country is less sexist than the other without giving any sort of laws, statistics, data, I think that's absolute fluff. I think it's a cop-out for them not doing any kind of research, and even though I'm not saying that Australia is sexist by saying this at all, I do believe that this point is absolute nonsense.
Number 6, they're more educated. In Australia, education is quite expensive, and students are usually not facilitated by the government when it comes to paying fees. Australian women are more educated because the schools in Australia often offer courses in different languages. They teach languages other than English, such as Spanish, French, etc.
As somebody who went to college for 4 years in the States and took a couple of classes towards a master's degree, I did have to take 4 classes in Spanish as part of my liberal arts education. So to say that Australia offers classes in other languages as though that's something that's not an option or something that's mandatory in the States is kind of ridiculous.
It's a stereotype that American students are spoiled because they have government support, unlike Australia. They don't have the opportunity of scholarships as much as American students, so it's all their money which they don't find pleasant to waste. HSBC estimated that the average annual cost of studying in Australia was $38,516, or £24,936, compared to $35,705 in the US.
So here are some actual numbers that this person decided to avoid in order to make their point. While the average cost for public U.S. education is $20,770, the average cost for private education is $46,950, all in American. So I think this person needs to do a little bit more research if they're going to start talking about money as far as the cost for education. Because as somebody who's been paying off student loans for the last 9 years, I can say for sure that the government does not give as much support as is rumored to believe. That while there are scholarships available, they're very difficult to find, they're very competitive, and it's not something that is regularly thrown out to people. So the notion that Americans are spoiled over this, I think they need to Google American student loan crisis and do the research. According to World Atlas, the US is actually ranked 6th in terms of education for women, particularly the average year spent in school for women, whereas Australia doesn't even crack their top 10 list. Number 10 is actually their neighbor, New Zealand. So if you're enjoying at least this video, please hit the like and subscribe button down below for weekly content regarding the differences between American and Australian cultures, and let's get back to the next point.
Number 5, they're better at sports. In Australia, women play a number of sports professionally, such as cricket, ice hockey, netball, tennis, golf, and even cycling. Sports made their way into the school curriculum for girls somewhere around the 1890s.
So in terms of sports, this is something that is kind of difficult to compare because you have such a huge population difference. While sports is really big in the Australian school curriculum, it's also big in the US curriculum. I remember I actually had to take in college 2 classes for gym. I actually needed a swimming test in order to graduate. And on top of this, I also had to take a year of physical education in high school, which included gymnastics, basketball, tennis, Pilates. So to say that Australians are better at sports than Americans, by what statistics? Are we talking about high school sports? Are we talking about medals won at the Olympics? Because if you want to look at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, the US ranked 1st for total medals won, whereas Australia was 6th. And if you just look at American women alone, they won 66 medals in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, which if they were their own country would have ranked them 4th in the entire world. So obviously there are some Australians that are better at sports than Americans, but by what sports, what standards, the population difference, this is something that's difficult to measure and is something that I don't know if should have been included in this list as far as Australian women being better than American women. Because how are you going to compare them?
Number 4, they live a healthier lifestyle. It's common knowledge across all over the United States that weight has been a common issue for girls the past few years. In every corner of America, you will find plenty of fast food restaurants, and drive-thrus are always jam-packed. On the other hand, eating habits of Australian women are quite different, as they prefer homemade veggies rather than cheesy pizzas or crispy burgers from McDonald's, which is the reason why Australian women are healthier than American females.
Obviously, weight is a huge issue, and it's something that people love to kind of pick on Americans over, whether or not we deserve it. I mean, we are the country that founded McDonald's and Burger King and KFC and Taco Bell and fast food culture in general. According to World Population Review, the US has a percentage of 36.2% of an obese population, whereas Australia is only 29% of the population. And this is just obesity. It doesn't go into morbid obesity. This is obviously anecdotal, but I've heard a lot of Aussie friends say that when they come to the States, they're overwhelmed and surprised by the number of morbidly obese people who are walking around in the country. So we do know that obesity is obviously a problem in the US, and I do think that overall Australia does offer a healthier lifestyle, especially when you look at the statistics. You can't really argue with a 7% statistic that Australia is healthier and has a lower obesity rate. But part of this goes beyond just fast food and fast food culture in the States. Our food standards here in the States are much lower than they are in Australia. It's a little bit anecdotal, but I remember sending my partner a bar of Hershey's chocolate. He thought it tasted absolutely disgusting compared to Australian chocolate. And honestly, when I tried Cadbury, I could see what his point was. And this is true across all different kinds of foods. There are different types of pesticides that are used. There are different growing precautions that are used. The rules and the laws are very different in each country. And overall, Australia does have much stricter food standards than the States.
Number 3, they live longer.
Yeah, this is true. If you want to look at statistics, this is absolutely true. Australians do live longer. Australian women do live longer than American women, which I think is something that is great. I think this is the first time we've actually seen a decline in the American lifespan. Like ever since 2020 and the whole panorama thing happened, the US actually faced its biggest decline in lifespan since World War II.
Number 2, they're adventurous. Australian women are incredibly friendly and fun. American women are so busy that they rarely get to take time out for traveling, since they usually prefer work over everything.
Oh gosh, the video editor. He is really getting on my nerves. Thank God we are almost done. So it's not that American women overall prefer to work. It's that we're not given nearly as much vacation time compared to most other countries. And the fact that we're still paying off our student loans that you seem to think that we don't have because we're spoiled. Please get your sources straight. As far as being adventurous, Australia is a very adventurous country. It's very adventurous culture. They're known for traveling. They're not afraid to take a gap year before college. Backpacking is a huge part of Australia. Actually, one of my best friends is a backpacker, and she's been all over the world. So to say that Americans are less adventurous because they prefer to work is absolute nonsense. When you get 1 week of vacation a year, how are you supposed to be able to backpack through Europe for a month? Australians statistically are probably more well-traveled than Americans by population, but that doesn't mean that Americans aren't adventurous. It doesn't mean that they don't want to travel. We're, again, looking at two completely different countries with different cultures who have different expectations of them at work. So I don't think this is something that you can just compare and say one is more adventurous than the other without looking at the countries as a whole. I know a lot of Australian women who are far well-traveled, and I know a lot of American women who are well-traveled as well. But it also has to do with their situations, their finances, their circumstances. Both countries are known to be adventurous. Australia is known for having people who travel a lot. And I think that that's something that's absolutely wonderful about their culture. But to just say that American women are less adventurous because they want to work more is absolute nonsense.
Number 1, they're low maintenance. Australian women can get along with anyone. They're not very conscious about their looks as compared to American girls. They go with the flow when it comes to executing plans that they are less comfortable with, something you don't usually see with American women. Ladies in the United States are seen as drama queens and attention seekers. For an Australian girl, gifts, cards, or cheesy conversations are not really that.
Here is the thing with this stereotype, and I think that Hollywood has really perpetuated this notion because the majority of Hollywood are Americans. Yes, we have the Kardashians and a lot of reality stars and the Real Housewives and all of that nonsense. that when you look at it through that narrow lens, it does make America look like it's a very high maintenance country. But this is something that varies so much from person to person. So Australia is known as a more laid back and casual culture, and does this translate to women being more low maintenance over there? It depends on the women. Let's be honest. I know Australians who get dolled up all the time, who are actually fairly high maintenance, and I know a lot of Americans who are very low maintenance, who almost never wear makeup, who are very casual. This is something that is beyond just culture and really goes from woman to woman. And overall, if you want to look at stereotypes, you can say that the stereotypical Australian woman is more low maintenance than the stereotypical American. But what are the stereotypes are we comparing? Are you looking at some blonde hair, blue eyed surfer Aussie woman compared to like Kim Kardashian? So I think this point is absolute nonsense. Do I know a lot of Australian women who are low maintenance? Yes. I also know a lot of American women who are low maintenance. And to compare one or the other, saying one is more or less than the other without any sort of data, any sort of statistics, is absolute nonsense. So overall, I feel like this was a fairly poorly done video. There was very little research done, and the research that was done was very narrow, very biased as a way to kind of put Australia and America against each other. Both countries are absolutely incredible countries with amazing cultures and some huge differences in these cultures, which is not acknowledged at all in this video. So overall, Aussie women are amazing, and so are American women. I think that this is something where you have to look at a case-by-case basis, and if you want to see the differences between Americans and Australians, maybe do a little bit more research than this video editor did, because this is not a good video that actually shows American and Australian culture. Everything kind of boils down to stereotypes and a couple of poorly selected research articles in this entire video. So what do you guys think? Drop a comment down below. What did you guys think of the video? And is anything you've seen actually fallen into the stereotypes that keep getting perpetuated in these kinds of videos? Let me know what you think down below, and if you did enjoy it, please hit the like and subscribe button. I post weekly about moving to Australia, the differences between American and Australian cultures. So join our little Amer-Australian family, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.